Hello everyone, welcome to Commerce Biz. In today's video, I am going to discuss with you the meaning of e-commerce and also the different types of e-commerce business model. So let's start today's video with the meaning of e-commerce. Electronic commerce is shortly referred as e-commerce. The short form of electronic commerce is called as e-commerce, where E stands for electronic. It means buying and selling of goods or services over the internet and the transfer of money and data to execute these transactions. When the buying and selling of goods and services is taking place online, that is over the internet, then we are calling it as e-commerce. If a person wants to buy the goods online, he has to select the goods, he has to transfer the money, and he has to provide the data. For example, he has to provide his address and mobile number, pin code number, all these called as data to successfully execute the transaction. Every time individuals and companies are buying or selling goods and services online, they are engaging in e-commerce. Individuals are the buyers and companies are the sellers. So when the buyers and sellers, they are buying or selling the goods online, that is over the internet, then they are engaged in e-commerce. I hope you're clear with the meaning of e-commerce. Let's now discuss what is the meaning of business model. Different companies, they follow different business model. So the meaning of business model is, it refers to the method of doing business. See, the method of doing business by which a company generates revenue. Simply, the method of doing business is called as business model. Different companies, they follow different types of business model. So which business model they are adopting, so the method they are following for conducting their business is called as business model. Let's now discuss what are the different types of e-commerce in e-commerce business model. E-commerce business model is classified into 6 types. The first is the business to consumer, which we shortly call as B2C. The second is the business to business, that is the B2B. The third is consumer to consumer, that is C2C. The fourth is consumer to business, C2B. The fifth is government to business, that is G2B. The last is the business to government, that is B2G. Let's now discuss all these 6 models in detail. This is the diagrammatical representation of the types of e-commerce business model. In the diagram, we can see that it is divided into 6 types. Let's now discuss all these 6 models in detail. The first is a business to consumer model, which we shortly call as B2C. B2C is the most common type of e-commerce business model. B2C means business to consumer. Most of the business are consumer oriented. That's why it is the most common type of business model. When the shoppers buy something from an online store, they are involved in business to consumer e-commerce model. So when a person is buying the goods online from an online store, they are involved in B2C model. Here the company will sell their goods or services directly to the consumers. What the company will do, they will place all their products or the services they are providing on the websites, either on their website or on any other famous websites like Amazon, Flipkart, like that. So what the consumer will do, the consumer will visit that website and he will look at the products and the pictures, and also he will read the reviews about the products from the previous buyers. So after doing all this, what the customer will do, he will place the order to the company and the company will ship the goods directly to the customers. So this is called as B2C, because the business here, the business is directly selling their products to the consumer. That's why it is called as B2C. If we take example of Amazon, Flipkart, etc., they are B2C models. Here is the diagrammatical representation of the B2C model, where you can see that the customer is ordering the goods online on the website. The website is placing the order directly to the business organization. Here the business is supplying the goods to the consumer. So it is called as B2C model. The second type of e-commerce business model is the business to business model, which we shortly call it as B2B model. Under B2B business model, a business sells its product or service to another business. From the name itself, we can clearly identify that one business is selling its product or service to another business instead of selling it to the final consumer. The final consumers are not allowed. Here, the final consumers are not involved. So the online transaction only involve the manufacturers, wholesalers and retailers. So these parties are involved instead of the final consumers. If we take example of the sites like Udaan, Alibaba, IndiaMart, Trade India and Exporters India, all these are the examples of the sites which are dealing with the B2B model. If we look at the diagrammatical representation of the business to business model, that is a B2B model, here we can clearly see that the business or the wholesalers, what they are doing, they are placing an order on the website, and the website is processing the order and it is placing the order to the business organization. Then the business organization, they are supplying their goods to the wholesalers. So they are not supplying to the final consumer. Instead of that, they are supplying their goods to the wholesaler. So it is called as B2B model, and Alibaba is one of the leading B2B model example. The third is a consumer to consumer, which we shortly call it as C2C model. A consumer to consumer or C2C is also called as online marketplace. So the C2C model is also called as online marketplace, where the consumers are in direct contact with one another. Here two consumers are in direct contact with one another. No company is involved. In C2C model, no company is involved. It helps people to sell their personal goods or asset directly to an interested party. Here one consumer is selling his goods or assets to another consumer. If we take examples like OLX, Quikr, eBay, these are the C2C e-commerce websites where two consumers are buying or selling their goods or services. Here is the diagrammatical representation of the consumer to consumer or the C2C model. The fourth is the consumer to business model, which we shortly call as C2B model. Consumer to business or C2B model involves a transaction that is conducted between a consumer and a business organization. Here what the consumer will do, they will sell the products to the business organization. Here the consumers are the seller of the goods and the business organizations are the buyer of the goods. That's why we are calling it as C2B model. It is the reverse of B2C. In B2C, business is selling their products or services to the consumers, and in C2B, the customers are selling their products to the business organization. In this model, the consumer is the seller of the goods or services and the business organization is the buyer. If we take example of monster.com, naukri.com, LinkedIn, all these are the examples of the C2B websites, and here is the diagrammatical representation of the consumer to business, that is the C2B model. The fifth is the government to business, which we shortly call it as G2B model. Government to business G2B is a business model that refers to government providing services or information to business organization. When the government is providing information or services to business organization, then it is called as G2B model, where the government will act as a seller and the business organization acts like a buyer. Government uses G2B model website to approach business organization. Such websites support auctions, tenders, business submission functionalities. If we take examples like Udyog, Aadhaar, Broadcast Seva, these are the website that is the example of the G2B model. Here is the diagrammatical representation of the G2B e-commerce, where the government is providing its services or information through a website to the business organization. The last is the business to government, which we shortly call it as B2G model. Business to government B2G is a business model that refers to business selling products, services or information to government or government agencies. When the businesses are selling their products, services or information to government or government agency, then we are calling it as B2G e-commerce model. It refers to trade between the business sector as a supplier and the government body as a customer. Here the businesses are acting as a supplier and the government is the buyer or the customer of their product or services. If we take example of the IT services to government, machinery, electronic equipment, infrastructure, etc. If we take example of the machinery, some of the business organization, they are providing or they are manufacturing the machinery that is required by the government or government agency. So in that case they are totally dealing with the government agency, or their customer is only the government. In that case it is following the model of B2G. Here is the diagrammatical representation of the B2G e-commerce business model, where the business organization is the seller or the supplier and the government is the customer. I hope you are clear with the meaning of e-commerce and also the different types of e-commerce business model. If you like the topic, please do like, share and subscribe to Commerce Biz. Thank you.